Welcome to another edition of the Mexican Soccer Show. I'm your host, Cesar Hernandez, and today is all about the Liga MX. We're going to talk about the Liga MX final. We're also going to have some special guests who are going to give us their thoughts about their favorite team season over in the 2008 Clausura. But before we get into that, let me introduce my co-host over in, I was about to say in Toluca, in Guadalajara. Tom, if I remember correctly, you were just in Toluca less than 12 hours ago. Now you're back home. Anywho, Tom, how are you doing? How you doing, man?
Good,
Tom Lars
yeah.
from Guadalajara.
Got the overnight bus straight from the stadium to the Central, and then a little bit of a sleep on the way. But yeah, back in Guadalajara, and yeah, good times in Toluca. It's a beautiful city.
You out there for a concert or something?
Not really. but no, it's the atmosphere was amazing. It was genuinely one of the best I've seen at a game here, and the stadium's so intense, and the stands are so steep, and it's the first time I've been there with the new design as well, and very impressed with how it was. So yeah, good experience covering the final.
All right, we'll definitely get some of Tom's thoughts later on in the show. But we also got to introduce Adriana Terrazas over in Mexico City. Adriana, how you doing? Sorry about some of the audio problems we're having just a few minutes before we started the show.
It always happens. I have no idea. Technology just sometimes hates me, but I'm doing great, you guys. I like the final, not the best one, but still quite happy to see Santos get that 6-star on his jersey.
All right, so let's jump into the big question for today's episode. Like I mentioned, we're going to talk about the final in just a second. But today's big question is this. With another Liga MX season in the books, what was your highlight of the Clausura? I'm going to start with Adriana. What was a highlight for you?
I actually like the fact that Tigres didn't make it to the final. I like it when we get this crazy outcome where Santos comes in and just beats Tigres, beats America, and beats Toluca, which was first place, and they had this curse, the super leader curse all around them. I like the fact that sometimes Liga MX can't be that predictable. And I specifically like the fact that Santos, who I thought was doing a little better in the end, especially in the Liguilla, beat Toluca. So I like that, being surprised by the Liga MX. Usually, not all the time, but usually.
All right, so being surprised by the Liga MX. All right, Tom, for you, what was the highlight? Was it the cat that we saw on the field in that Pachuca versus Xolos game? Because I'm tempted to say that one, but
it was not there.
You missed out on that. Oh, you missed out. There was a cat on the field during the Pachuca and Xolos game earlier season. But anywho, what for you, Tom?
I think there's two. I think one of them is Rafa Marquez bidding farewell. With Atlas, I was at that game, and it was pretty intense, pretty emotional for the Atlas fans, and if you look at Rafa Marquez standing in the Mexican game, he'd probably go down as the second best player ever. So I think that was a big moment, and I'd say the other one was if I had to say a game, I think it was that second leg. Adriana was hinting on it there. Tigres against Santos, where really that second game when Santos overcame Tigres and nobody expected it. Tigres were 2-0 up from the first leg. You go into the second leg and you think this is completely over. Like there's not much point watching it, you know what I mean? And then for Santos to actually get past Tigres was for me the moment of the season, and I think that was the moment they believed in themselves, and I think that gave them all the impetus and all the self-belief to go all the way to pick up the trophy, because in the quarterfinal against Tigres, in the semi-final against America, and then in the final against Toluca, they were underdogs each time, and they didn't care, and they went about the game. And as playoff runs go, obviously you've got this debate where should you have a season that's like the European style, and then you've got the other argument, all the playoffs, and playing the playoffs is a skill in itself. But if you subscribe to that, that dealing with the playoffs is it's like almost a separate season, and there's a way to do it, then Santos Laguna showed exactly how to do it, because pretty bad. They weren't that great, and then they lost against Tigres, and you thought that's it. For them to come back from that, I thought was pretty special.
Yeah, Christian on the chat definitely agrees with you. He also, he brought up, he said Santos delivering a 4-1 beatdown to America is definitely the highlight. Victor Perez brought up something that you discussed just a second ago about the goodbye to Rafa Marquez. For me, I think something we haven't talked about yet, a name we need to discuss is just Giannini. I know he had some injury problems in the playoffs. He didn't really, it looked like someone like Julio Furch had to step up for him. You had others like Brian Lozano providing assists. You had other guys, really stepping up the attack for him. But just Giannini was just so incredible during the regular season. It was crazy to think that he also had injury problems at the end of the regular season as well. That he could have had more than 14 goals in that regular season. So at least for me, it was a lot of fun watching him. I think I had a lot of fun watching Keisuke Honda too. I think for whatever reason, no one, he wasn't given enough credit or attention. I don't know. I felt like I was the only one who was really like hyping him up sometimes when I was watching Keisuke Honda with Pachuca. But I mean, it's just, for me, it's fun to watch Pachuca in general, but just watching Keisuke Honda play was just a lot of fun.
He didn't really talk much, did he? He didn't really kind of talk much, and then Pachuca were kind of a bit of a letdown as well. And I think that kind of, to be honest, fed into it. But no, you're right, and I think there was a great story for us journalists there with Honda, and I think we all missed out because he didn't want to give any interviews. But he's pretty out there. He's got a lot of people working for him. Yeah. He's got this kind of, I can't remember what it is, but he's doing this. What is it like? He's got a lot of interests outside football and stuff. And
I was working on. I mean, one of the reasons why I was following Honda too is just because I do some side work for a Japanese soccer blog covering Honda, and one of my editors from that soccer blog told me that Honda would be a much better player if he wasn't so worried about being the Bruce Wayne of soccer. It's just that his mind's just like, he's an incredible player. But that
Bruce Wayne.
Bruce Wayne, dude, tell me come on, you don't know who Bruce Wayne is?
I'm Googling it now. Don't worry.
It's Batman. Oh my god,
Batman.
dude, that's who Bruce Wayne is, man. Oh my god.
We're logging off now. Okay, let's go.
But it was just kind of interesting to get that perspective from someone who's been following for quite some time. Said that he's clearly an incredible player, but there's just so much going on.
Batman. Is that exactly.
Yeah, he's trying to be
exactly like Batman.
Like a philanthropist. But anywho, guys,
we got another moment. I think we got to mention the femenil final again.
Yeah,
the way they broke the records. First of all, in the Estadio Universitario, and then it was that kind of doubt, going into the second leg. Can Monterrey do it? And then, I mean, I think it was, that's something that it's not all the time that garners headlines all over the world. And I think the Liga MX femenil final did do. And, I thought that was again a major positive, bouncing off last season when Chivas made headlines by winning the title, and the atmosphere all surrounding the final. So good news on that account.
Yeah, looking at the chat really. Sorry. Go ahead, Adriana.
Oh, I was just going to say that we also started off being really amazed by Pumas. They had this amazing streak, and Nicolas Castillo was on fire. And then it was just like an entirely different team the second half of the season. They barely made it and all the way to the half, all the way I think it was the end of the season. I think it was 2 victories. It was just crazy the way they just switched off halfway through the season. It was just we were just all thinking, hey, Pumas is just the team to beat now. And then something happened with the team, and it was just amazing. I think that was also one of the best points in the season, particularly at the beginning.
Yeah, and looking at some response we got on Twitter, I got one from @2even who says, "For me, the highlight is that a team like Santos can win the Liga MX, a team that doesn't have the money, economic power of others or the big names, but it has a consistency and teamwork to win." Yeah, well said. @2even. So guys, let's.
Well, actually,
go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, just saying this about Santos. They were the U20 champions last season. They were twice champions with a U17 team this season and last, and now they're Liga MX champions. So they're doing something well, something that other teams should actually look up to, because you don't get that kind of results just from one day to the next. And
someone like Siboldi, who's in charge, has had that experience with the youth teams as well, which is something to keep an eye on. But anywho, let's really quickly, let's go over what we're going to discuss in today's show. So once again, we're going to talk about the Liga MX final really quickly for a few more minutes here. But we're also going to have, the big focus of today's pod is we're going to have some special guests. We're going to have a guest from the Eagle Eye podcast, TigresNation.com, Chivas del Norte, Paradero Boys, and something called the Xolos podcast. I don't know who would ever be a part of something called the Xolos podcast. But anywho, guys, let's chat for a few minutes about the final. I know it's already everyone's already got World Cup fever. They're thinking about the national team. I mean, my mind is definitely with the national team right now. But Tom, you were at the game. Just what stood out to you, whether it be something on the field, off the field? I saw you talk to a couple of people involved with Santos too. And once again, credit to Santos Laguna. I mean, we haven't even said Santos Laguna and our friend Kim Tate out there, who are the champions. Credit to them. Congratulations to them. But Tom, your thoughts on Santos Laguna's championship?
No, I thought it was amazing. I thought they did amazing. I thought they did really well. I thought they played their game. You know, they just, it was like they weren't. It felt like Toluca weren't going to score. It felt like Toluca could do anything, and they were never going to score. And obviously, Auchi at the end did get the goal, but he just felt like, you know, Izquierdo's was absolutely immense. He just seemed to be in the way of everything. And then, you know, when his shot did get through, you had Jonathan Orozco, who for me outshone Talavera, and Talavera is the one going to the World Cup. I just think in terms of confidence as well, commanding the area, distribution, Jonathan Orozco, you know, was better than Talavera over the two legs. And you know, Orozco was a massive reason that, you know, that Santos won the title. But, you know, Giannini as well, he didn't score a goal. I know the stories that Forge kind of came of his own in the postseason. But I tell you what, when Toluca were putting on most pressure was when Giannini went off with the injury. Yeah. And I know obviously he's a striker, he's not a defender, but the reason is, for me, I'm pretty clear about it. When Giannini's on the pitch and your team's defending, you've always got an outlet. He's absolutely amazing at kind of taking the ball far away from the opposition goal and kind of causing trouble and doing things and making things happen. He's very, very good at that, and I think that, you know, he was an absolute key in the final as well in terms of that. The atmosphere was special. I think the Toluca fans, you know, obviously without a title since 2010, and I think they just felt it. They felt like this was their season, and to be honest, you can't really blame them because, you know, top of the regular season, you know, the playoffs, they were okay, but, you know, you just felt that 2-1 behind, you felt Toluca could do it, you know. But obviously, I think you have to give a massive amount of credit to Santos Laguna, because I thought the spirit and the fight that they showed to get over the line was amazing, to be honest. And you know, like Adriano was saying, this is an institution, not just a team. Yeah. An institution that is, for me, I've said it for a few years now, it's the example for other clubs in Liga MX to follow.
I mean, it's an exciting club, undoubtedly an exciting club. I remember talking to, I forget who was exactly with the Santos organization when I did an article about Santos, I think it was about a year or two ago for ESPN, but they were even talking about wanting to open Santos academies in the United States. It was just like pretty impressive to hear something like that, so progressive.
Yeah, I think they want to buy clubs.
Yeah,
I think they want to buy other clubs. I'm not sure about and I'm sure you're right there about the academies, but I think they want to follow the Pachuca model.
Yeah,
and kind of buy clubs elsewhere, which is fascinating, because the theory is that Santos Laguna, after the Grupo Modelo backed out, the theory is that they don't have much money, so therefore they're investing in the youth teams, you know. But I mean, if they're going to buy other clubs, then you imagine there's money there somewhere.
Yeah. Adriana, your thoughts on Santos? Your thoughts on the final? You know, what comes to mind after yesterday's game?
I have to agree with Tom. I think the fight in Santos was the most impressive thing we've seen in the Liguilla so far. It's just something that Tigres didn't have. We thought America might have it, because when we saw the semifinal and we saw America Santos, I think many of us thought that America was going to make it through easily, and they just didn't make it. It wasn't easy at all. I saw Santos. That was a really a tight group. You don't have those individualities except for Giannini, and he wasn't playing that much in the Liguilla. He had an injury. So I think that tight group, and you had Cabecita Rodriguez sometimes being on the bench, and he was a really important player in the Liguilla as well. And then you have Jonathan Orozco coming in and showing off what Monterrey is missing out on. So I think it was that's the merit that Siboldi has, making that really good group and just making a really amazing team out of some players that other teams they didn't want last season. You have Brian Lozano from America, you have Cortez from Pumas, and you have all these players that were just trying to find a new future in another team, and they really made it with Santos.
And it's pretty impressive that Santos, when they brought on someone like Siboldi, who you could say, like, it almost seemed like because he came from within the organization, he had that experience with the youth teams. You would think that it was almost like he was like an interim as opposed to a long-term project for Santos. And after taking charge after Chapo was fired, he's carried them to a title. And this is a team that was in 14th place last season. So it's really, really impressive to see what Santos Laguna have done. But maybe at the same time, maybe it isn't that surprising when we've all, complimented and just really applauded what Santos Laguna are doing. And I feel like every time I talk to Tom about Santos Laguna, I feel like the word that you consistently use is progressive. I feel like that's just an organization that's very progressive in the Liga MX.
Yeah, well, when you're down here and you go into different clubs and speaking to people from different clubs, you do get a sense of when something's going right, and when you knock on the doors and they don't open them, and things like that, and they don't want to. I don't know. A lot of clubs are very kind of insular. They don't want, and then Santos are the opposite. They want you to go in there. They want you to have a look, and then when you do, and you talk to the scouts and you talk to the sporting director, the youth director, you really get an idea that this is a proper club. Like, this is a club that's gone outside of Mexico and taken ideas and then mixed it with obviously their identity as well, and come out with an institution that, like I said, is for me, it's an example. I mean, I think they've taken a lot from MLS. They've obviously taken quite a bit from Europe as well. And yeah, I think it's it's good, and they do it. They're very intelligent. I mean, look how much money they made from America in the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, Darwin Quintero and Peralta, and then a host of others have gone over there, and then they're bringing, like you said, then they're bringing names that really, haven't really made it. But anyways, okay.
Well, speaking of America, we're going to move over to our next section of the podcast, in which we not only just talk about the Liga MX final, we're going to start to look beyond that. We're going to start to look at the Liga MX fan. We're going to start to look at how well teams have done in general this season. And for that, we've invited a bunch of special guests. And right now, we're going to start with our buddy Ivan from the Eagle Eye podcast. I've been on the pod before. Ivan, thank you for having me on there. I don't know if you guys have been on there as well, but Ivan from the Eagle Eye podcast, how you doing, man? Welcome to the Mexican Soccer Show.
Hey, everyone. Hey.
How's it going?
Having me on.
Yeah, of course, buddy. Of course. So really quickly, let's before we jump into America, tell us about the podcast. Tell us about the Eagle Eye podcast, because once again, for those who are just tuning in right now, I think the big theme of today's episode is we wanted to invite others from the Liga MX family. We wanted to invite, once again, those from the Eagle Eye podcast, the Tigres Nation, Chivas del Norte. And I gotta admit that the reason why we're having this podcast is because your buddy Dylan actually proposed this idea to us, because he was the one who brought up. He's the reason why we're doing this. But Ivan, tell us about the Eagle Eye pod.
You know what? You gave credits to Dylan because of this little show idea, but I also have to give credit to him for the podcast too. If we're talking origin stories here, it's it really is him who kind of just messages me out of the blue. I'm playing a game on live on YouTube on FIFA, and just he messages me, "Hey, do you want to start a podcast?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And we just talked, and he said, "Let's, do you want to do about the whole league, or do you want to focus on a team?" And I'm like, "Well, what team do you have in mind?" He's like, "America," and it just became an instant friendship after that, and he's just kind of like family to me now. So we've grown within the little bit of time that we've had, and
we need some violins. We need some violins in the background here.
Maybe, but it just started off like that, and then I think we both put our heads together, and we decided, kind of the structure of the show and what we wanted to do, and we still have plenty of ideas that we want to continue, but thankfully within the short time that we've had, things have gone well, and some of that goes to you guys as well for giving us that shout out. So thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Tom, Adrian, do you guys have any questions for Ivan about the Eagle Eye podcast, or just about America in general? I feel like there's so much to discuss.
I would probably ask you, hey, Ivan.
Hey.
I would probably ask you, what is your feeling for America for this season? Is it a good season for you guys? I know it's like every time you have Miguel Herrera comes out of conference, he's like, if you don't win the title, it's not a good season. But seeing all the things that happened with the team, all the new players, was it a good season for you guys, or was it just not good enough?
I'm gonna have to go with not good enough. I think it's just that pride that you have as an Americanista, that when it comes down to it, you're supposed to be the best team in the league, And the way we went out in both semifinals, whether it was the Conca Champions or whether it was the Liga MX, it just wasn't good enough. And you tend to question what's going on, especially with, once we get to kind of the end of the road, it seems like we're just kind of falling apart. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I think me and Dylan put it pretty well that, it's a season that we get no titles, and that we that we look poor towards the end of each kind of little semester that we had. So I think at the end of the day, the only word that really sums it up is a fracaso. Not a big one, but it definitely is a fracaso.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, isn't it? 2 semi-finals for a lot of clubs would be pretty good, but I don't know. I think it's the nature of the defeats now as well. I mean, especially in the first leg of each of them, they basically lost it. It wasn't good enough in Toronto, and it wasn't good enough against Santos Laguna. And I know in the second leg they were kind of, we can do it, blah blah blah. But they left himself. And I just wonder, Herrera tactically, if he got it wrong, you know what I mean? If he should have been a little bit more cautious and maybe respected, especially Toronto a little bit more. But I don't know. I also think America were a bit unlucky with injuries. Because I think if you look at against Toronto, Mane wasn't there. And if you look at Mane, really, Mane's he's such a when he's on form, he's possibly America's best player.
Yeah,
probably with Uribe, but he's right up there. And then obviously in the Liga you didn't have Aguilera, and I think I thought that was a blow, because I thought in Santos against Santos in that first leg, the defense was terrible. No, I thought it was. It just wasn't good timing injury wise either.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. I think that definitely was a big blow to us. Especially too. I think if you go back to the Apertura, when we go down against Tigres too, it just, there was just wasn't good enough from the players that were out there. This whole year round from 2017 to 2018, it wasn't a pretty year for us, injury wise too. But I think that's more of an excuse if you think about it, because America kind of planned to maybe have these kind of injuries, because we knew Cecilio Dominguez was injury prone. We knew that Uribe at his age could potentially pick up a knock here and there, and just the way it looked like we were just starting to build a hospital. So the team started building around that, starting to get a little bit more of a squad depth, which I think is something that was very important for us, was get that squad depth. It looked like we had that depth, and I think it just went to showcase that maybe we didn't have the depth that we thought we had. And I think a lot of people may not agree with me, but I think the moment that we lose Darwin Quintero to Minnesota United is, I think, the moment that we kind of lose that squad depth.
Ivan, I've got another thing I want to bring up from the chat. Antonio Rojas says, Uribe has had a great career, but he's done. 34 years old already. What are your thoughts on Uribe, right? Or maybe I guess you can say, what are your thoughts on just the striker situation looking forward for America?
I think we're at a pivotal point where we need to get someone that's younger, more lethal, and has a proven track record that he can score. No disrespect to Oribe Peralta, who I think we owe a lot of respect to, because what he did with us in the time that he's been here, he's been absolutely amazing. I think maybe it's not. Some people will say it's time to let him go. I would like to keep him in the club. I think what he brings to the table is a lot of vast knowledge, a lot of experience, and who knows? I mean, coming off the bench, who's to say he can't be that super sub?
The only thing about that is, I think you're completely right, but I just wonder financially, with the amount of money that guy's on, if America will be just prefer to get rid of him. If somebody will pay him big money, and probably Santos at this point. I mean, I think that would be a perfect end to Oribe Peralta's career, and another couple of years at Santos and then retire at his hometown club. But yeah,
I think that would be a nice way to go.
I mean, right now they're apparently talking to De Jong's representative, right? I mean, that's a big thing right now, if I'm correct.
Correct. The latest rumor coming down is that De Jong's actually going to be going down there to the city, going to be checking it out. He's going to be talking to the people from America. It looks like he's still adamant at coming in. It looks like he's still, willing to come, and hopefully he is. I can't remember exactly what his price tag is, but it's for the amount of goals that he's scoring, for the amount of for the player that he looks like he is, it doesn't look like it's gonna be, kind of like a world record deal for us to kind of break the bank for. But if he does come, and a lot of us are hoping that he does. I think he can add a lot of danger going forward, especially if he can link up with Jeremy Menes.
All right, Ivan, thanks so much for joining us on today's episode. Maybe we'll have you on as a guest in the future when talking about Las Águilas. But really quickly, where can we follow you? Where can we listen to the Eagle Eye podcast? Give us some information here about the podcast.
All right. So basically, you guys can always find us on Twitter at Eagle Eye Pod. That's just all together at Eagle Eye Pod. And you guys can always find us here on YouTube as well. When we come back, we're gonna take a little mini vacation before we start coming back and talking about maybe the national team. But you guys can always find us here. We're usually live on Tuesdays, but always check Twitter. We always keep you guys updated. And if you guys ever want to hear us on the go, we're also on iTunes and on SoundCloud. Just kind of type in the Eagle Eye Podcast, and we're the ones with the big old picture of the yellow águila.
All right, well, Ivan, thanks so much. I'm sure we'll be talking either on the Mexican Soccer Show or the next time Xolos will be playing America.
Definitely. We'll have both on. All right, well, thank you so much, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys.
All right, next up, we have Dan Price from TigresNation.com. Welcome, Dan. How you doing?
Very good. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
So I mean, before we get into some of the questions about Tigres in general and just whatnot, but I can't help but recognize the fact that we now have 2 Englishmen now on the pod right now.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I thought he's always outnumbered by you guys, so here I am.
But anyway, Ted, really quickly, tell us about Tigres Nation. I assume you're based out of Monterrey.
Yes, I split my time between Monterrey and La Paz. So my wife is from Monterrey, so spend a lot of time there, and I have a place over in La Paz in Baja Sur as well. So I go backwards and forwards.
Nice. Tom, Adriana, actually, we'll go with you guys have any question about Dan about whether it be Tigres Nation or just about Tigres in general? Because once again, I mean, like America, I feel like there's so much to unpack here about Tigres.
What about La Paz?
It's hot, but so is Monterrey. So
Actually, I went there about 3 weeks ago. I went there for my birthday. A month ago, yeah. It was good, yeah. Very enjoyable.
Yeah, it's a lovely place. Cabo 2 hours down the road, so you've got the party there as well, I guess.
A bit expensive for me though, Cabos.
Oh, yeah. Well, there you go.
But no,
football teams here, unfortunately. Xolos opened or got a license to open a 3rd division team here. They got the license, I don't know, 12 months ago, 18 months ago, but nothing has come of it yet. So I live in hope.
All right. Big question about Tigres. If you're the president right now, would you keep Tuca Ferretti? Do you bring in a new manager? What do you if you're the president, it tells you your taste, what you want to see from this team.
No, I think you keep Tuca. For me, I don't think there's any question about it. I think the longevity that Tuca is the very foundation on which all the recent success is built on. I think probably people level 2 criticisms at Tuca. I think they say he plays defensive football and that he loses too many finals. And I don't think either of them are fair. I think probably we play patient football more than defensive football. And in terms of losing finals, I think, the nature of being a top team means you get to finals. If you want to compete and win silverware, then, you're going to lose some. No team has a 100% record, so it's part of the nature of the job. So no, for me, 100% stays, no question.
My question is, I mean, it's just interesting to just think of a weak link or a weak point or just a big area of concern for a roster that is as stacked as Tigres is. But what stands out to you when you think of improvements within the organization? I know obviously there are some high hopes for Tigres just because of the amount of money that is spent, but just when it comes to improvements in the way that the team can get better, what stands out to you?
I mean, it's a bit of a funny one because, again, Tuca has this reputation for being more on the defensive side, but I think the defense has needed looking at for 2 years or more. I think Juninho and Ayala are just not good enough to anymore to really consistently be at that top level. They make too many mistakes. Juninho is about 82 years old, and I think the defense has to be looked at. You go through the list of the defenders they've got there, and Alberto Acosta, he's not great, and Colo hardly saw any football. Meza, he looked good for a while, but Tuchel doesn't seem to fancy him. So for me, it's the defence. But I think you can look at all of Tigres, to be honest. And Tuchel's been there so long now that he's made, I don't know how you say, generations of players, if you like. And there was obviously the 2014 side with Garon and, these types of guys, and Guti Estrada and Gringo Torres. Some of those guys are still there, but now it's Gignac and Dan Aquino, and possibly it's time for another generation to come through again. In the local media in Monterrey, they're saying 7, 8, 9 players could leave this summer. Whether or not that's true, I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me if quite a few left.
Hey, Dan, what do you think about next season? Apparently, the 2011 rule is coming up again. So then all the teams will have to use players that are under 21, something that Tigres doesn't do. They were U20 champions this season, so that's a good idea. That's a good thing for them. But Tuca isn't known in Tigres for using all these youthful players. How do you think that'll impact the team next season?
I mean, it's impossible to say until we see who he's going to go with and if he's going to bring in any young players to sort of step up and play regularly. The obvious problem is that Tuca's always bought old, as you say. He's always preferred experience over youth players. By and large, there's a few that have come through, Pulido, Dueñas, and so on. What happens next season? I really don't know. We will see how it pans out.
I won't at all be surprised if Tigres went and bought a young player.
No, I agree.
A bit like Cruz Azul just done with Alvarado. I mean, they've got a player there he's already played like 60, 70 first-team games, in second and first division. But I mean, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if Tigres done that. And it's a massive shame, Adriana, that they're under 20s champion, and those kids know. I mean, the percentage
and they have and the leading goal scorer was from Tigres as well. But I just don't see that guy playing when you have someone like Gignac, for example, in Tigres. So
what's the name of that guy?
Yeah.
What's the name of that guy?
I'll look it up. Hold on a second.
I forgot the name of that guy, but
I'm not sure.
I remember I sent out a tweet about just like, like a promising young Mexican, and just like my Twitter was just bombarded with people being like, lol, this guy's a part of Tigres. He's not going to get minutes. Come on, what are you talking about?
I mean, Tigres history is littered with players that have been discarded after they get to about 22 years old. So I have no faith that we'll see anything.
Dan, we've got a question from the chat from Carrie Torres. She asks, "Is Zela Rayan is he leaving Tigres?"
It certainly looks like he could. It'd be a shame to see him go, but I think the size of Tigres' squad has enabled them to consistently get to all these finals over the last few years. And by the nature of the size of it, some players are going to play less than they would like. And does Zela Rayan have a place in the Tigres 11? Almost certainly, but. Will he still be there next season? I seriously doubt it. No is my prediction.
All right.
I got the name for the goal scorer. It's Rafael Duran. He's 20 years old. I have no idea if he'll make it for the rule though, because he's 20 years 9 months. So I'm not sure if he'll make it for next season though.
that kid's whole career is now doomed. He won a few months earlier.
He'll be champion in the Segunda Premier, that one league that like you can't find any information on. You can find stuff like the Ascenso, the U20s. But anyway, Dan, thanks for joining us on the pod and talking about Tigres for a little bit. But for those who want to follow you, who want to follow your work, who want to follow anything, like here's your opportunity to plug some stuff in.
Yeah, Tigres Nation, obviously, tigresnation.com, the Twitter and the Facebook accounts. I run another site as well, Liga MX Zone, so we do some more gossipy news on that side of things. So if you fancy reading some of that, then have a look.
Oh, awesome, Dan. Thanks so much. Thanks for talking about Tigres, and best of luck. Looking forward in the next season.
No, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. Cheers.
Yes.
Guys, it's like a marathon now, just like going from guest to guest to guest. This is a fun exercise, though. Just kind of set this all up. But anywho, next we have Vado from the Chivas del Norte podcast. Vado, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining the pod.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Nothing much. Just here to talk about well, actually, tell us about your pod. Who cares about us? Everyone hears about us like plenty. Who cares? We all have our own opinions and whatnot that just like people get like way too much about. But like, Vado, tell us about Chivas del Norte podcast and tell us about yourself.
Yeah, man. So we do the Chivas del Norte podcast. We try to do it weekly, just give our thoughts on how Chivas has played, what we expect from Chivas. We just did our season recap yesterday, and we put it out today. So if anybody wants to check that out, it's up on our Twitter page. And I don't know, we've been doing it. I think this is our third season doing it, and it's fun, just get our thoughts out there, and people actually care.
No way.
Well, I hate to talk about Chivas after that season, but I mean, that must be.
What do you mean? The kings of CONCACAF, Cesar?
Hey, we're the kings of the North, man.
Kings of
Come on.
CONCACAF.
I mean, there's got to be so many mixed emotions right now, right?
Pizarro sits on that throne right now, right? For now.
Whoa, yeah, for now,
Everybody's trying to pull him up, but he's still there.
I mean, there's
I
just
just want
like
to go and hug Alvaro, like just be like, oh my god, what are we gonna do next season as a Chivas fan? I'm so worried.
Yeah, I mean, league wise, it was rough, but the CONCACAF we saved. I think we saved the season.
Alvaro, if you think this season was tough, I can't imagine what's waiting for us next season.
Yeah,
we don't even know if we're gonna have a Almeida next season.
We can't even buy players right now. We're like
I know,
one of 3 teams that can't buy anybody until we get the whole debt solved.
You can sense the tension already, just like when just jumping straight into this Chivas talk right here, just like looking ahead for the team. Almeida might be gone, Pizarro might be gone. I mean, just when you look ahead for the squad, I mean, especially when you look ahead to the Club World Cup, what do you think is necessary not only to succeed, just like in the Liga MX, but also this December? And what thoughts come to mind?
Well, one, I think we have to keep Pizarro because I think he's Chivas' best player without a doubt. However, like Pizarro's form is Chivas' form. If Pizarro's playing poorly, Chivas is not going to show anything on the field. And I think the second biggest problem we have to address is the back line. I think our center backs are Alanis is leaving. Pereira's good, but he's injury prone.
So when he's healthy.
Yeah, when he's healthy. We have two young center backs. We got Basuta Marin, but they're like, I don't know, they're not reliable. I don't think they can start, especially at a Club World Cup. So I think those are two.
Salcido's
not center back form. Nah.
That's a youngster, right? God, 19 years old or something like that.
I'll take him as a defensive midfielder. I don't want him on that back line. Like watching him play on the back line against Toronto, before the game, I would have like nightmares of Javinko running at him at full speed and just Salcido like a blender. I was like,
No way.
Tom, what questions do you have? Because especially since you're based out of Guadalajara, Tom, like what questions do you have here for Vado?
No, like what's the reaction been? Obviously Chivas being the all Mexican team, and because we talked quite a bit about Liga MX teams, kind of reaching out to English language audience, but I think with Chivas it's slightly. I don't know if it's different. I'm not saying they shouldn't do it, but there is definitely like this, the element of nationalism and stuff like that. Well, what's the reaction been like to your podcast from Chivas fans down here in Mexico?
In terms of what exactly?
Like, did they appreciate what you're trying to do, or they don't like it, or?
Tom, I think what you're trying to say is, do Mexicans give them crap for them to? Do Mexican Chivas fans give them crap? Like
every now and then, yeah, we'll get like a mention, like what's the word? I'm like blanking out right now. They call it bochos, and I'm just like, okay, like we're just trying to cover the team because there are fans out here too, and I think Chivas is like the problem too. They don't. A lot of the Liga MX teams don't reach out to the fan bases that they have in the States. Yeah. I think only a couple of them have English social media accounts. I don't think there are any teams with stores in the United States. Like Chivas can sell a ton of merch. All Liga MX teams can sell a ton of merch if they would just set up shop here in the States.
Yeah. What do you think about the all Mexican policy? I imagine you support it, but when it relates to players born States and not being able to represent the US sometimes, and
So players that go from the U.S. to Chivas.
Yeah, and but the with Mexican background, but then not being allowed to play for the United States. You think that's and the naturalized Mexicans? You think they should be allowed or not? Or you think this policy should stay as it is?
Naturalized Mexicans, I'm not like a fan of that working. Like even on the national team, I'm like hesitant.
Yeah,
It's worked for us in the past sometimes, but I think players having to give up like their right to play for the national team, for the U.S. national team, if that would be the case. I don't know. Kind of like on the fence with that. I think if the players decided to go to Chivas, I think they're willing to make the sacrifice. So I think they wouldn't head to Chivas if they don't want to give up that right. So I think it's more on the players.
Dude, Tom Votto was probably like expecting questions about just like about the defense, about the midfield, and you're like, no, let's go to like the central big like topic like regarding this team. All right, Votto, thanks so much for joining the pod. Really quickly, how can we follow you? How can we follow the Chivas del Norte podcast? Here's your opportunity for some plugins.
Yeah, on Twitter you can follow the podcast at Chivas del Norte. And we're on iTunes, SoundCloud. If you search The Colorful Kit, we come up under, I guess, that podcast network that they're building up.
And Barrow, remember, if things don't go well next season, you're not alone. There's people out there that can help you, that will support you.
Hey man, I got a Chivas tattoo, so I'm in it till I die. All right.
All right, awesome.
We have to stand together, Alvaro. Just stay together.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me on again.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man.
All right, later, guys.
All right, so that was Votto from Chivas del Norte podcast. Next up, we're going to have someone from the Crosstown Rivals. We're going to have David and Ramon over from the Paradero Boys, who should be joining soon. Looks like join the video call. Hello. David, Ramon, can you hear us?
Yep.
Hey, there we go. Thanks for jumping on the Mexican Soccer Show. Tell all of our listeners about Paradero Boys, about yourselves. Here's your opportunity. Just tell us about the website and podcast, or your soon to be podcast, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Soon to. Basically, the website is we started with a Twitter account and just talking about Atlas, and then I talked to Ramon and hey, let's make a website blog, and we made it. And now next season we're gonna have the Paradero podcast and a brand new web series called Outsiders, which is
called Outsiders.
Nice. Here before Tom and Adriana ask some questions. Where are you guys based out of?
We're here in Guadalajara, Jalisco.
Because that's actually kind of surprising. Because for most people that when I talk about the Liga MX like English kind of community, a lot of people like myself were based out of the United States. You know, for example, we just had Votto. I think he's up from New York or Chicago. I forget exactly where. But what inspired you is for someone who's actually living in Mexico and living in Guadalajara, like what inspired the decision to be producing this content in English about Atlas?
Yeah, go ask Tom. He's from Guadalajara too. So
no, but the fact that we saw what you guys are doing and we kind of like it. And I mean, I think it's phenomenal to speak in English about the Liga MX. And since we're from Guadalajara, we usually go to Atlas games. We talk about it and said, you know, let's make this happen.
Fascinating.
Hey, you guys. I'm actually amazed you guys have an Atlas podcast, because usually in Guadalajara, I'm guessing many people go towards Chivas, or you'd go towards America sometimes. I see lots of Americanistas in Guadalajara.
Yep, a lot.
What does Atlas have that other teams don't? Why would you root for a team that has so many years without a single title in the Liga MX? What does that identity feel like?
Look at Adriana, already like giving these guys a hard time, just like a minute.
Yeah. I mean,
it's amazing. I mean, really, like.
Adriana's a Chivas fan, by the way. Gotta make that clear at the start.
That's the question many Atlas fans get, and you know what? I mean, it's we're very passionate about Atlas. I mean, the people are going every 2 weeks. They're going to the Jalisco. I mean, we're been through a lot of rough campaigns, just like the last one has ended, and I think we're hopeful. I mean, even if we deep down know that something's gonna go wrong or something, we're still hopeful. And I don't know. We're very passionate about Atlas.
How hopeful are you for next season? What do you think Atlas has to do? Because you've had some pretty good seasons sometimes, and I say that as a Chivas fan, and that's tough. But what do you think Atlas has to do differently next season to actually have a really competitive team? I mean, you have Tigres in the north and Monterrey, and America is always bothering us and stuff like that. So, what does Atlas have to do next season, seeing as though they don't have Rafa Marquez anymore?
Yeah, I think they ended the season really decently after that horrendous start, like 12, 13 weeks. I mean, Gerardo Espinosa looks like a promising coach. I would say it will be a promising season, but these last few news about Caraglio leaving to Cruz Azul, Luis Reyes, Brian Garnica maybe leaving to America, I mean, they gave me some doubts, the usual Atlas doubts. I mean, maybe with that Caraglio money, they could buy 3 or 4 decent players. People have been talking about Roman Torres of Seattle Sounders, but I don't know. I mean, maybe they can work it out, get back to playoffs, and maybe it just won't work out. I don't know.
That's a glass half full mentality. I just don't know.
It's almost like a masochistic fan base. You know what I mean? It's like the more you suffer, the more you lose. This is how I see Atlas anyway. The more you're attracted you are to the team. You know what I mean? The more it kind of draws you in. You know, on the off chance that one day they do win. You know what I mean? That makes sense.
I mean, we're just hopeful that one day they can make it work it out. Maybe Rafa Marquez getting that front office job that some people are thinking he's going to get. I mean, maybe he can get the ship on its right track. But I think for this season, we're still going to have some struggles. I mean, we have so many youngsters. They played really decently the last 4 or 5 weeks. But I think, I mean, they still need to grow up. I mean,
but
Atlas,
you know what annoys me though about Atlas is that obviously the history of the youth system, and obviously the evidence is there. Everybody knows the players that come out of Atlas, and then you got someone like Brian Garnica, who, he's played for the last 2 years now. And when he started, for me, he was very raw. He wasn't at Liga MX level, and now he is. You know what I mean? Now it's like kind of, all right, this guy's ready to make an impact. Obviously this is only my opinion, but then now they're talking about selling him, and that's the thing that I don't get. If you're an Atlas fan here in Guadalajara, you must get so angry that you see these kids, and I know a lot of Atlas fans they follow these kids under 17s, under 20s, and they're waiting for them to come into the first team. Then they break through in the first team, and then they sell them. And it must be like, I don't know. That's what I don't get about Atlas.
That's been the history of our team. Always like a promising player comes out and just play 2 seasons and they sell out. But yeah,
I mean, it's like a little frustrating to see that player develop into a pretty decent player, and you think, oh man, maybe we could have a decent team next season, and then boom, 3 or 4 players are sold to America, Tigres, etc., or maybe Europe, and you're like, okay, let's start over again at 0.
All right. Well, David, Ramon, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast really quickly to tell us about Paradero Boys. So really quickly, for all of our followers and our listeners, where can they follow you guys? Where can they follow the Twitter account? I don't know if you guys have any other, whether it be Facebook and Instagram. Just let us know where they can follow you guys.
You can follow us at Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as Paradero Boys.
And also the website, paradorboys.com.
So
I got one more quick question, mate.
Oh, yeah, go for it. Yeah, go for it, Tom.
No, just wondering if you boys have you ever spoke to the club about doing like kind of English language content or not? Have you never had any contact?
We even having problem to get a press pass to the game, so I think we're pretty far.
Most of the coverage was being made with a beer in the hand watching the game like most fans. But yeah, we're hopeful we can get some press pass to make more content for Atlas.
All right, we'll definitely talk to Tom. I'm sure he'll hook you up.
I don't have any of me.
I'm just kidding. All right, thanks so much, guys. Thanks so much for telling us about Little Boys.
Thanks for
Thanks, guys. Yeah.
See you now. Thanks a lot.
All right, next up, we have my good buddy. We have my co-host of the Xolos podcast. I'm worried about having Francisco today because I'm worried we're going to have nothing to talk about on our final podcast of the season, which we're set to have later on this week. But Francisco, I talk to you like fairly often. I talk to you every week on the Xolos podcast, but this is your debut on the Mexican Soccer Show. So Francisco, for those of you who don't know your work, here's your opportunity. Tell them about where you can follow you. Tell you about what you do when it comes to Mexican soccer.
Hello, guys. Hello, Adriana. Hello, Tom. Hello, Cesar. Honored to be here for the first time here at the Mexican Soccer Show. And yeah, I cover the Tijuana Xolos for a website called East Village Times. I do the Xolos podcast with Cesar, and I cover a lot of Mexican soccer in general for another website called Football 20. And yeah.
Tom, Adriana, I don't have any question for Francisco just because I hang out with him all the time. So I'll let you guys take charge on this one.
I have a question for you, Francisco. You have Tigres being like the giant now in the north. You have Monterrey, who's struggled, but also being getting quite a lot of attention. And now you have Santos, the recent champion. What does Xolos have to do to turn all that northern attention their way? What is missing for Xolos?
Really to keep a core of players. Look at Tigres, you look at Monterrey, you look at Santos. They usually do keep a core of players. You saw the current Santos championship team. They had players like Carlos Izquierdos, Giannini Tavares, who were part of the 2015 championship. And then Tigres, they basically have a dynasty team now with Guignac and Juninho, Hugo Ayala, all the players that have been there for a while. And you got Xolos, and they just get a good player, and then they just sell him on.
Yep.
You should talk with the Atlas guys because they have the similar problems.
You should get together.
By the way, Francisco, really quickly before Tom asks a question, but Angel on the chat says that Florida Marlins hat, though. I mean, I always shout out to Francisco because I feel like I focus so much on Mexican soccer, but I think Francisco focuses just as much on that and also baseball. I'm just always impressed with just the amount of attention Francisco pays to like not only just soccer.
You know more than me.
Yeah, probably Tom. Yeah, 100%. I guarantee it, dude. I guarantee it, man.
Mexican basketball as well.
No way. Hey, so Francisco, next season, first of all, talking about the transfer window, and then going ahead to next season, what are you expecting from Xolos? Are you expecting a big turnaround again of players, or do you think they can keep that base that you're kind of looking for?
I mean, it's already falling apart, right? I mean, Pablo Aguilar, he just signed with Cruz Azul today. It looks like it'll be all downhill from here, to be honest. I mean, I really don't see this team replicating what it did this season, getting to the semifinals of the competition, beating Monterrey in the quarterfinals. I think they really overachieved expectations this season. And yeah, I think, Pablo Aguilar was the first one to go, and I think a few more players are headed out the door, unfortunately.
Here's a question we have in the chat from the Goat Main. It's an interesting username. It says, can Xolos get rid of their turf? I don't know, Francisco. I mean, we're probably going to talk about this. They're renovating it, yeah. They're renovating. We've seen the images. It looks like they're going to put in more turf, but I mean, it does. There seems to be no indication. At least I don't know.
What's the deal? Is there some kind of hot spring under the surface or something?
Yeah, that's what the club says, is that there is some sort of hot springs that doesn't allow natural.
Hang on, put a spring underneath.
Yeah, but apparently there's some rumors from some people that say that the club says that just to save a little money, just to save a little bit, not worry about that. But yes, according to the club officially, I think grass.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully when they put a new turf down, it's better. I mean, it's one thing having artificial turf, and then another thing having good artificial turf. But it seems like what was down on the pitch at Xolos, it wasn't even that great, you know what I mean?
I'll let Francisco take charge of this, man. We've been on that field, man. Tell him about that field.
It's so bad that we no longer have access to the field after the games.
No? Does he take photos or what?
I have no idea, but yeah, after the games, they don't let us down there anymore. But yeah, the quality of the turf was absolutely horrendous. I hope it's not the same. I really don't see how it could be any worse than it already was, to be honest. Yeah.
No, I mean it does save the club a lot of money because when you have all the teams training there, you don't need to pay the really grounds person. You know, you don't have to buy land in a different part of the city to kind of put you a big, massive training complex. So, you know, it does save them a lot of money. But you know, I always say, you know, I think Xolos and Toluca have just such a massive advantage when it comes to home games because they've got certain circumstances. And, you know, obviously Pumas and a couple of the Mexico City clubs, but you know, specifically Xolos with that turf. I mean, it's just like so different playing on that compared to normal grass. When you're the only team playing on that surface, it's a big boost now for home games.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you see a lot of different teams when they come in. That's one of the usual responses in the mix zone or by the players as well. So yeah, you know, you usually see that quite often.
We've got a question here from the chat, and this is something that we've talked about in the past, but not specifically this question, but it's in general. Anywho, Robert Cordova asks, does Bradley Wright Phillips haunt Xolos' dreams?
I mean, honestly, to me, the season was immense for what they did in the Liga MX.
Yeah.
But because of that, you know, CCL failure, it does knock it down a lot, especially because I really think they could have done well in that CCL. I think they could have taken on a team like Chivas in a two-legged series. And yeah, you know, it's really disappointing that they went down to the Red Bulls.
Yeah, it was disappointing, especially when you saw Chivas play him, no? I mean, it was when you saw Chivas against him, you're like, oh, they're not that good. You know what I mean? But I also, honestly, I thought Xolos were pretty unlucky. I thought Xolos were pretty unlucky in that first leg because I thought they absolutely dominated that game. And obviously, the second leg, when you're chasing the game like that, it's difficult. But no, I thought it was a good season. No, for Xolos, I think that they needed it. Obviously, with Miguel Herrera no longer there, I think they needed a bit of a reaction and stuff. And I don't know, but again, I completely agree with you, Francisco. It's just it almost gets annoying, you know what I mean, every season to have to kind of learn who Xolos have got and who the manager is and how they're going to play, and it's like you don't see that kind of line. And but I tell you, I like that Luis Chavez. I think he's got a good future, no?
Chavez looks great. I think he's one of the best young players on the team right now. Started the season starting some games, and then they took him off. But it seems like he can fight for a starting role next season. And yeah, you mentioned, you know, with the managers, it is frustrating, especially right now. I mean, Diego Coca, it doesn't look like he'll be here for more than 1 or 2 more seasons. And yeah, you know, a whole new process after that.
Adrian, do you have any other questions about Xolos for Francisco?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, Francisco, how worried are you regarding next season, seeing as Xolos had some financial difficulties? They're sponsored by a betting company. That just seems like really odd. But how worried are you that might affect the planning for next season? Yeah, that's just weird. But how do you think that could affect the team next season?
Yeah, the financial issues, I just cannot understand them at all. I mean, recently, you know, you saw Hank, he donated over 3 million pesos to Teleton. You see they sponsor almost like half of the teams in the league or maybe even more. And it's just incredible to see this team have those financial issues. I mean, there's reports that they stole money to Humberto Osorio, who played with the team in 2015, and apparently they owe him around $200,000. So yeah, it's just incredible to see these financial issues, and it looks like this has been constant for a few years now. And I don't know what's going to happen. I think they will resolve this before the transfer window, and they will be able to sign some players just based on the amount of money they do make. But it's tough.
I mean, if they can't make it financially, I really don't have any hope for Chivas then for next season. I mean, if it's a betting company, then there's nothing else to do for the rest of us.
It's concerning. No, if Xolos are like that, Chivas like that. I mean, it's not good for anyone. It's not just those clubs. It's like teams like.
It's not good for the Liga MX. It's not good for the Liga MX in general.
No. Yeah. I mean, teams like Veracruz or Chiapas when they were around, it was quite easy to say, no, these guys are really bad. You know, they're terrible. What they're doing in the league, but it's not so easy to kind of with someone like Xolos kind of just move them aside, or with Chivas just be like, no, they're not with us. You know, because the Xolos have been one of the stories, the last 10 years in Mexican football. The way they've established themselves from nothing, it's been absolutely massive.
Yeah, it's incredible. Really, we look at, they're one of the financial forces in the league when you look at how much money they make. And there's also little things to consider as well. Jersey prices, the jerseys cost the same as when they had Adidas, but now they have Charlie Football, which is, much less a quality brand, and they're still charging about the same. And then the parking prices are actually really high as well, probably the most in the league, for teams in the league at Mekis as well. So it's also like little things you have to look at as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, Francisco, thanks so much for jumping the pod. Now we're going to have literally nothing to talk about when we record the Xolos podcast.
It's over.
It's over. We might as well just close out the Xolos podcast. Now we're just we're going to get the Xolos podcast.
Sound bites from right here and insert them into the next pod.
We're just gonna copy and paste this, and that's what the Xolos podcast will be later on this week. But Francisco, for those of you, for all of our listeners who don't follow you, who don't follow your work, where can we follow you? Where can we what do you write about? Just any little extra plugins here to wrap up the show.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at FranciscoEFV. And right for EastVillageTimes.com, right, for about Xolos and all other Tijuana local teams as well. Also write about the Liga MX on Football20.com. You can follow their Twitter at Football20News. And thank you guys. I appreciate it. And of course the Xolos podcast as well.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Francisco. Be sure to follow Francisco. He's probably like one of the more hardest working people out there. Just like not only like soccer, but baseball. But I'm always like impressed with the amount of stuff that you're covering out there, especially with Tijuana. But thanks so much, Francisco. And I'll probably talk to you like in a couple of days when we go to show this podcast. All right. Thanks again, man.
See you, everybody. Thank you.
All right. Whew. That was crazy going through all those guests. I didn't realize how like mentally tired it could be to kind of just like kind of go question after question after question.
Get everyone on.
But anyway, for all of you who are watching, who've always wondered like, oh, should I start a podcast? Should I start a Twitter account? Should I do something regarding would it be Morelia, Necaxa, Leon? Maybe there's something out there that you haven't that needs more English language content. You should do it because guess what? The teams aren't doing it. There are always talks that the teams are going to do it. There's always a chance that those teams might actually do it, of course, but it isn't out there right now. So if you guys ever feel passionate about this, ever feel like you want to do something, really just go out there and do it. I've had a lot of fun covering Liga MX in English, and it is really, really disappointing that the league itself doesn't really provide anything. I was going to say stuff. It provides nothing when it comes to English language content. The only time it provides English language content is like when the website is acting up, and then like the default settings of like everything that's in English will like pop up in English. And sometimes
no reason.
Yeah, that's the only reason you'll see English language content is like when they're like, the default settings. Yeah, like a bug or like but anywho. So any of you ever feel like you've always felt like a little inspired to start something regarding whether even if it's just a Liga MX or just El Tri, just do it. Just go out there, start a podcast, start a website. Just because it's a lot of fun, guys. Adriana, Tom, any other thoughts about what we talked about today? We could close out and talk about El Tri, but anything about Liga MX before we wrap up the show?
Well, I was actually just seeing a story. Luke de Jong's dad and his manager are here in Mexico, so I guess we'll have to talk about America a little more soon.
Yeah, something to keep an eye on. Something to keep an eye on. Tom, anything else you want to talk about Liga MX wise?
Nope.
No, that's just about it.
No, but thanks for everyone for coming on. And keep up the work and that because like nobody gets paid for these. I think that's what the Mexican soccer show has been going on for so many years now, and like nobody's got any money from it. Like it's not like we're coming on here and like getting loaded. We just do it because we like doing it. We all get on, outside the show as well. And it's great to see other people picking up. Cantina MX is around as well. We've got all these club podcasts coming together. So, I think it's good, working together as well, and tweeting each other and doing all that kind of thing. I think I think it gives us a bit more visibility, you know what I mean? Because I think even people within clubs are battling hard so people give it at least a little bit of importance, the English language content. Nobody's saying it's the most important thing, you know what I mean, by any means. But I think, I think the audience is there, no? The audience is there, and it's just not the it's just connecting, no? And I think that's what we're trying to do here, basically.
I mean, it's the most popular soccer league in the United States. The El Tri is the most popular national team, and I'm not even should even just say United States and entire North America, and the same thing with the national team. So it's cool. I mean, as cool as it would be to see clubs doing it, at the same time, it is just as awesome to be seeing fans, taking it upon themselves to be doing that. So hopefully we'll see more of that stuff later. But guys, it's now 8:11 over here, which means it's probably after 10 o'clock for both of you guys over there in Guadalajara, Mexico City. So we're going to wrap things up. Tom, I'll have you close out the show. Any final thoughts? Even though I just asked you for your final thoughts.
Adriana do with it.
What was it? Adriana?
Adriana close it out.
All right, Adriana, you'll close out today's episode. Whatever you want to talk about, and we'll close out after that.
Sure. Well, let's just keep an eye on Liga MX. I know the draft is typically in 2 weeks, but for some reason, all the clubs are making all the changes right now. We're getting all new players, so we'll still have lots to talk about, and just keep an eye on your teams and see how fans react to whatever players their teams get rid of and sign on. Hopefully, Chivas will have something to talk about. And and we're just getting all that World Cup fever coming in too. So let's see how that goes, and we'll have lots of El Tri to talk about as well. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so this is, I guess, wrapping up things on Liga MX. And yeah, I guess from here on out, it's going to be all El Tri stuff. So thank you, Tom. Thank you, Adriana. Thank you to everyone who jumped on the podcast. Thank you everyone who listened. And until next time, we'll see you all in the next edition of the Mexican Soccer Show. We'll see you guys later.